you play a video game or watch a film, do you ever wonder who came up with the initial visuals of those characters, or perhaps that sci-fi spaceship? Well, that's where concept artists come in. My name is Ellie Cooper and I'm the creative director at Athena Productions, a concept art and visual development studio working on video games, films and TV shows. So we know what the concept art process is. And in this video, we're going to go through what a concept artist really is and what they really do. We're also going to cover things like the process, career paths, and just general tips and tricks from our studio. Let's get started. When someone asks us what is concept art or what does a concept artist do, we find ourselves trying to think of a way to explain what we do. Concept art is mostly used in the entertainment industry, so think of video games, films, TV shows, animation, things like that. And concept art in its simplest form is a bridge between ideas and reality. So concept artists will be given a written or a verbal idea, and using digital art techniques, they will create a concept art piece that will then take the idea into reality. Concept art isn't just about creating pretty images, it's about design, and it's a really important step in production because it saves a lot of time and budget. But how so? For example, if I asked a 3D character modeler to create a character from scratch, they may go away for weeks to create that character, and you may come back and you may find that your art director is not what they're looking for, and so you'll have to go away and fix that, and that might take even more time. It just would take far too much time and budget away from the project. But for example, if you have a character concept artist, they're able to leverage their artistic and design skills to really quickly pull together multiple designs over a number of days so that you can choose which one fits best without wasting time on modeling. Concept art usually follows a set workflow, though it can be more flexible with that and go back and forth between different steps. Though what we found is you normally start with a brief, then going into sketching, then going into colour, and then your final image. But of course there is a lot of iteration and feedback between the brief and the final image, so you may be going back and forth between steps. Some projects may ask you to skip going into colour entirely, they may just want black and white sketches. It depends on the project and the needs of the image that you're doing. There are a lot of different ways to become a concept artist, and in my career I've learned that there is no right or wrong way to become one. The first step is to decide what you want to do. So would you like to be a character concept artist, environment, prop, weapons? Which one do you find the most enjoyable? Specialising in the beginning is really important because trying to learn how to do all of it often leads you to, you're kind of stretching yourself too thin. There's too much to learn, and typically studios prefer people that are narrower. So try and decide that early on. And whether you go to online schools or offline schools, it doesn't matter. It's whatever suits you. For example, people that are wanting to learn online, they may not have the resources or the ability, or they may just not want to go to an offline school, actually be there in person. And the opposite may be true, where somebody that is going to a physical school may want the companionship of other students learning around them and being in a more collaborative environment. Either or is perfectly fine. As somebody that actively recruits for Athena, the first thing I look at is your portfolio. I don't care where you learned or whether you didn't go to school or whether you have a degree or anything like that. The first thing I care about is whether you understand what concept art is, and if you're able to design and tell a story and create beautiful images as a result. That's what I care about most. So if you want to go to an online school or just classes, there are tons of resources out there. So for example, there's Learn Squared, CGMA, Gumroad, ArtStation, YouTube. There's tons of resources out there. And alternatively, you can always take mentorships. And mentorships are a fantastic way to be able to get the insight of a mentor who's actively working in the industry, who's able to answer questions that you may not be able to ask in a class. And they can just be a fantastic way for you also to gain feedback and an industry connection as well. And one of the most important things is to have a portfolio that's online. How else is a recruiter supposed to find you if you don't put your work online? So using places like ArtStation is a fantastic way for you to get found by recruiters. And you can be able to show your process, your artwork, and things like that. So always make sure you have a portfolio or at least an online presence for people to find you. It's a really important thing to have. So typically concept artists use digital art techniques. So for example, we use Photoshop to paint, and then we use 3D programs to create 3D. So, we often use ZBrush, Blender, Unreal Engine, 3ds Max, anything that works for you. As long as you get the work done and things like that, it often doesn't really matter what 3D software you use. Though when you are starting to learn, I recommend making sure that you choose a software that has enough learning materials out there. You don't want to be trying to battle with a 3D program that you don't know and there's no resources out there for you. So for example, Blender has tons of resources out there of concept artists teaching how to use Blender or certain techniques in Blender, and you can always just go for that. For me, when I started, I really struggled to find which 3D software I liked. I really struggled with the very technical side of Blender. So in the end, I found that using ZBrush and Unreal Engine was a really great way for me to kind of keep that artistic feeling that I loved. But every artist is different. For example, some artists, if you say to them, why don't you use Unreal Engine? They won't use it. They prefer Blender and they love Blender, and that's perfectly fine. Everyone's different and everyone loves certain different programs, and they work with who they are or what they want to do. So there's no right or wrong answer again. You can just kind of use which one kind of works with you best. But like I said, try to find one that has enough learning resources out there for you. And in terms of the hardware, we usually use graphics tablets. So like this is a Wacom tablet. You can always get one that has a screen in it, like this one, or you can use one that's just like a pad that goes on your desk. It doesn't really matter, whatever works for you. Some senior artists, they prefer using the pads, rather than using a screen. I prefer using a screen than using a pad. It's up to you. But you can find some really good ones out there that are not too expensive, but are still very, very good. So make sure you go out there and compare which one that you would like to work with. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty of concept art. Concept artists have to be relentless and tough people. They deal with things such as feedback, deadlines, having to work on the same image multiple times, and you have to be ready for that. With feedback, it's never personal. And a good way to think about it is if, when somebody gives their feedback, it's for the project. Everyone who's working on that project is always so passionate about it. It's not a personal thing. Everyone just wants to see their project soar, and you need to kind of find a way to separate your ego and your confidence away from it. Some people, they may react negatively to feedback where they get defensive. Other times feedback knocks their confidence completely, and that's not what you want. You need to kind of be able to tell yourself that this isn't about me as an artist or my skills, it's just about getting it right and getting it there. So it's important to kind of have that mindset when you go in. Another thing is deadlines, and deadlines can be quite tough to deal with, and sometimes they can be extremely short, or you might have a ton to do in a really short amount of time, and you need to be able to organize yourself really, really well. And something that I recommend is to do a to-do list. So when you have let's say you have a castle that you're needing to design, I would write a list with the top being the biggest priority or highest priority and the bottom being the lowest priority. So at the top I'd put castle architecture, and then right at the bottom I would put birds flying in the distance. And from there you would be able to kind of get yourself organized. And for people that need more structure, it can really help to kind of get things out of your head or perhaps you could use it to write ideas down and get those out of your head and things like that, and it can really help. And another little trick is to, when you're doing personal work, for example, you could always time yourself. It doesn't need to be that you're forcing yourself to go at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but it's a good way for when you're doing an art piece in the background to record, so that in the future you can see how long it takes you to do an image like that. And it's an especially useful thing so that you know what you can improve on, perhaps where you spent too much time, but also if you're a freelance concept artist, for example, when you quote a client, you need to be able to say, oh, that will take me X number of days. And it can be a really useful tool, and it can be something that also can be quite enlightening, because sometimes you think you're slower than you are, and actually you're really rather quick. And that's something that I found as I got later into my career, is that I found that I thought I was slow, but actually I was really quick, and I just hadn't realised that I'd gotten faster over the years. Sometimes concept artists have to work on a singular image or a singular task on and on and on, because concept art is very feedback driven, very iterative. Sometimes you may be working on an image for a long time. So for example, I've known of certain people who have had to work on a singular image for 2 to 3 months and just go again, especially with designs for vehicles, weapons, characters, things like that. They may have to just do the same thing over and over and over. And you need to be able to keep the passion and the hard work going. And then the opposite can be true, where every few days you may be getting new tasks, new things to do. So you could be going from an environment to a prop or something like that, and that can happen as well. So you kind of have to be a bit more versatile. So that's something to be aware of as well. And finally, concept art is a competitive field. The reality is that there's more concept artists than there are jobs, so making sure that you keep your portfolio updated and continuously learning new techniques is incredibly important. And especially after 2024 and 2023 layoffs, it's really important even for seniors to be improving and adding to their portfolios. And NDAs, a lot of the time you can't show what you've worked on, so you need to be filling up your portfolio with more personal work. And trust me, I know that's really hard. As somebody who is a concept artist and now as a creative director, I would love to do concept art, and I can't find the time. There's too many tasks that I need to do. But you have to find that time somewhere, even if you're doing 10 minutes every day, or you do a few hours at the weekend. Something is better than nothing. So keep learning, keep adding to your portfolio, and that will help if you ever need to find another job, or you're finding freelance opportunities or things like that. Your portfolio is the biggest advertisement you can put out there as a concept artist. I know all of this can sound insanely overwhelming, and trust me, we've all been there, but concept art is a vital part of production. It saves time, budget and resources for projects, and concept artists have to be very tough and resilient to setbacks such as feedback, or perhaps projects being cancelled, or just going through the path of learning how to do concept art. You have to be able to keep the fire going, and it is such a rewarding and creative career to have. Being able to see your concepts brought to life or seeing your names in the credits is such a rewarding end for a project. It can just be such a fantastic way to spend your career. And I hope that this video has given you more of an insight into what concept artists do and the reality of what we do as well. And I hope it gives you a bit of hope as well into your career, and that you keep going as well. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to our channel, and also in the comments below, please suggest future videos that you would like to see from us. See you later.